What's going on, my good people? I have a stick, man. So if you hear noise, it's me carrying my stick. I found it, so I just want to carry it. And again, get out here and pay yourself, man. It's a good day outside, especially if you're in Houston, Texas, man. Get yourself outside. I know it's been raining. We finally got some rain after a very, very long time. Your grass is probably looking like hay if you wasn't watering it, but chill, get yourself outside, man. Pay yourself. They paid all your bills, they paid everybody else. Get outside and pay yourself. This video will probably be a little bit controversial, but I'm gonna be asking a what if. Hold on for a second. How y'all doing?
Good.
I'm doing fantastic. So I made it a habit a while ago to just start speaking to anybody that I see. I feel we could all make an effort to be nicer to one another. It don't depend on the race or nothing. We just need to find out how to be nicer to one another, and then we can make this world a better place. But back to what I was saying, my ask a what if today, and I'm probably gonna get some backlash for this. That's fine. I want to start by saying I am a believer in Yahshua. But what if I believe in Yahshua another way? So I have someone that posted something about Yahshua a while ago. It was 2021? He posted something about Yahshua and it sparked a lot of controversy. Like, people really were upset. But they ain't really say nothing to him. They were just kind of upset that he would say something like that. And it was basically saying that Yahshua had married Mary Magdalene. That was one thing that was said. And then, you got the wandering in the wilderness type deal. How you doing, sir? All right. So Jesus, or Yahshua, I'm not gonna call him that other name. Yahshua, when he was wandering in the wilderness at 12, that big gap in his whole life where nobody seems to know what he was doing. He was wandering in the wilderness. What does that mean? I have no idea what that means. And so wandering in the wilderness. Well, if you read a book called Jesus in India, or I'm going to say Yahshua in India, you can go read that book. It said that when Jesus was young, he didn't come from a poor family. He came from a family of means. Means, which he had some bread. Family had some bread. Had some bread. So Yahshua's family was not poor. And he had family that he would travel with. And every time they traveled somewhere, Yahshua would be close to the religious institutions. And he would learn different spiritual systems everywhere they went. He went to Egypt. And they took him into the priesthood because he just had knowledge that other people just didn't have, these concepts that other people just didn't have. And so they taught them what they knew. Then he went to India and he learned from the Indians. He went to Europe and he learned from them as well. So he had pristine knowledge pristine knowledge. Remember, this is a well-traveled man, well-traveled young man. But they say early in his life, he struggled with PTSD. Say he had, he had some womanizing in him a little bit. But after that wandering in the wilderness, something clicked. And when he came back home to teach his people, a lot of people didn't want to hear it, especially a lot of the religious scholars that were of that time. And so he had his disciples who were businessmen also. So he wasn't rolling around with broke people, It was like the disciples weren't broke. They ain't had no money. He said they were business people. So they had, means. It's another word that I'm going to use again, means. And so they would go around and they would do these, Jesus or Yahshua would have these teachings. And these teachings would blow people's minds. Sometimes the disciples didn't even understand what the hell he was talking about because the disciples hadn't seen what Yahshua had seen. They hadn't been through some of the religious schools that Yahshua had been through. But they also said Yahshua had women followers. And he started being in a relationship that was of a sexual nature with a woman named Mary Magdalene. Back then, if you wasn't married, they was probably on you. So they said Yahshua ended up marrying this woman, Mary Magdalene. Well, that's a big difference in the story. And so this made a lot of people upset because back then, Mary Magdalene, if your family told you was going to marry Joe Blow over there, that's kind of who you had to marry. So Mary Magdalene ran away from her family who had, what's that word again? Means? She ain't come from broke people either. So she came from a people of means. So this probably caused a big stir of that time, that Jesus was with this woman who was supposed to be married to someone else, married off to someone else. Now, as you know, for the people who have wives, you're going to share things with your wife that you're probably not going to share with your friends. So the disciples started getting mad at the information that he was sharing with Mary that he was not sharing with them, which angered them. And they say also, Jesus had this brother named Judas. And so when Jesus came back with all of these teachings, of course it was angering the people that were in government at the time and also the religious scholars because they knew the Bible back and forth. They knew those religious texts back and forth. They weren't practicing this stuff. They were just using it to scheme on the people and get money. And so what Jesus was talking about was breaking their system down. And they ain't need that. They ain't like that. So, they go to the brother, Judas, who in his story, he said Judas, his brother, was a gay man. Remember, man, Hebrews, by the time they got to Hebrews, dog, these people went through some crazy things, dog. So, of course, there were gay people around, just like there's gay people around today. That was as a result of what these people had been through, what they had seen, the ideologies that were being passed around at this time. So, since they were a business you know, they had a family of means, you know, the government would come over there and they would start talking to Judas like, man, what's up with your brother, dog? Your brother messing things up for everybody. So you're going to have to go and talk to him and get him straight, ring him back in. So Judas went to go talk to Jesus. Jesus was like, I ain't coming up off my square. I got the inspired knowledge of God, my Father, and I just got to speak it. If I don't speak it, ain't nothing going to happen. So, of course, time going on, Jesus still doing his teachings, and he's freeing the minds of people. Freeing the minds of people. Also healing people and doing all these other things and doing all these miracles. So they said Jesus went back to his hometown where he had grown up. And even though he's performing these miracles and doing these teachings, the people still saw him as the old Jesus who was running amok and who had, you know, been a womanizer and all these other things. So they ain't see him for the person he had became. They could only see him for what he was. So he left his hometown. He was like, you'll never be famous in your hometown. They're going to always see you as what you were, not what you're trying to become. So, of course, at this time, the Pharisees, they getting very upset with Jesus. So they go back to Judas and they was like, hey, we're going to have to do something about him. There was that Pilate guy. I don't know how to say his name. And they said, hey, man, we're going to have to put on a show for the people because Jesus is really shaking up the system. Jesus, it's Yeshua, man. He's really, really disturbing the natural order of stuff that we've set in place. So they arranged the crucifixion. And the purpose was not to kill Yeshua, but to show the others, if y'all believe this, we got to keep y'all in fear. So if y'all believe this, we're going to do this to you too. You know how they do, strong arm your people, especially when the people in charge want to keep things a certain way. So they did the crucifixion. So the crucifixion happened. But what they didn't discuss is that Jesus survived the crucifixion. But the deal that Judas made with the Pharisees and all these other people was that it was going to be a religious show. But stuff started happening up there when Jesus passed out. And he passed out. He didn't die. He passed out. And so all that stuff happened, little earthquakes, little rumblings, all that happened. And the people scattered off and they took Jesus off the cross. And his wife, Mary Magdalene, and his mama nursed him back to health. And they told him that part of this religious show, he had to get on about his business. They don't care where he went, but he had to leave that place. So when people saw him after that, they didn't let him come close. They didn't let him come close to Jesus. You know why? Because they would have known he was still alive. So he looked like a ghost. So when people say he looked like a ghost, like he was glowing, probably was. He had the spirit on him. So when you read Jesus in India, what you'll see is Jesus survived the crucifixion and he went into India. And a lot of people thought everywhere he went, especially on this side of the globe, because people thought Buddha was coming back, they thought he was the Buddha. They thought Yeshua was the Buddha. And so if you guys look up, just saw armadillo. You guys look up Jesus in India. Some of you, if you read that book, you'll find out that he inspired people over the globe after he survived the crucifixion. And it's even a temple to him in Afghanistan, where they say he died at 125 years old. Yeshua, the King of Kings. So they didn't say he died on the cross. They say he passed out on the cross. But he survived and lived to 125 years old. He went on to teach in other parts. And you know, there wasn't no TV back then. There wasn't no broadcast. They couldn't put Jesus on. They couldn't put Yeshua on no TV back then. But after he passed, and a lot of people got into power, I feel they changed the story and they turned a man into a god. I don't know why they did that, but they knew if we turned a man into a god, people would worship him. And if you turn a man into a god, it makes people on earth feel like they're not worthy of reaching the type of level that Jesus could have possibly reached, because as you can see, Jesus was given power and authority to the disciples for them to heal the sick and cure diseases. And I feel if we come into our greater selves, we can cure the sick and heal diseases. Like, it's a lot of depression in the world. The people that I've been talking to and discussing, like, how I came out of my depression, man, it's like curing them from a sickness. Like, they're like, man, I really didn't see stuff that way, man. I thought I was the only one going through this. Talking to a man just yesterday, and he was like, hey, man, the words that you spoke to me today, man, about like losing people and all of this stuff and guiding myself through relationships, he was like, man, you really helped me. And I was like, man, is this like a little form of helping people and curing the sick? Like, depression is a sickness, spiritual sickness, a sickness you can't see. But I feel if we all get balanced in our lives, this sickness that has been cast upon the world will go away. But again, if we turn a man into a god, what does this do to a people when we end up start worshiping a man and we take our eye off the Most High? So, I don't know, man. It's just a big what if. What if them people that try to be in control, that probably think themselves as gods and we just the workers of the world, what if they turn a man into a god to take our eye off God? The one true creator, the Most High. What if? Just a question.